Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BJJ Foxcast. I'm your host, Alex Martinez, and today I'm super excited to have Amber. Amber, is your last name Leonard?
It's actually Dupuis, but my maiden name is Learned.
Learned.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Amber Learned. Okay,
Yeah.
so and you know what? I was looking at your Instagram page. Great stuff, by the way. Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, really good. And I was like, I don't know that I've ever said her last name. We've known each other almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. You just got your black belt.
Yes.
And, you know, we've known each other for a while, but, you know, it's been kind of, I hate to call it peripheral, but we've never had like a deep conversation, you and I.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had stuff on the mat, you know, mat chat, stuff like
Yeah.
that. But you shared your story during your black belt speech. Everybody gets to have their own little talk.
Yeah.
And it really touched a lot of people. I mean, including me. And I thought, wow, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you agreed to do this. By the way, I don't know if you know Colin Opper. He's a brown belt at my school, kind of a bigger guy.
Maybe.
Well, Colin had a coughing fit right in the middle of your speech.
Oh, he's the one who messaged me and he said he tried to hold it off until you did your speech.
Yeah. He's a really good guy, and he was really moved by what you said also, but he felt so bad he could not
Oh,
stop
I didn't even hear it.
Nobody noticed.
I was so nervous.
Yeah.
I was just ringing in my ears and trying to get it out.
Yeah. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to you to get your black belt? I mean, let me preface by saying this. You're the first female black belt under Paul Nava, and he has 30 plus black belts.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
So being Paul's first was a goal that I wanted to have. But when I thought about the goal, I was a blue belt and I had a lot of women in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, Paul and his wife, Leslie, helped me a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I went through some rough times and jiu-jitsu kind of held me together.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you have people who, you know, aren't necessarily into material things, how do you give somebody a thank you to show them how much they mean to you, and how grateful you are? And I thought, well, I should become Paul's first black belt female.
Yeah.
And it just seemed so far-fetched. And then slowly the years went and it became more and more of a possibility.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was doing it, you know, and not only that, but, you know, it was a promise to myself that I would make it. And I thought I would be 50 when I got my black belt, you know, and I was 40. I turned 40 this past year I turned 40.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I got it, you know, by the time I turned 40.
That's awesome.
And that was huge to me. But, you know, I raised my kid myself. I started my own business. You know, I've been self-employed as a tattoo artist for 15 years. And I had so many things going against me. So having something that I could hold on to, like a black belt, personally was this achievement that made me, you know, past me, have reassurance that everything I went through was worth it. And then I was able to show Paul that I was grateful that he never stopped believing in me.
Yeah.
You know?
And you never, and in turn, kind of, it's really big for Paul because, you know, you never stopped believing in yourself. So that made him believe in you even more. You know what I mean? You overcame a lot of adversity.
Yeah.
Just to stay, number one, employed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Number two, raise your kid.
Yeah.
And number three, do jiu-jitsu. How many times a week do you do jiu-jitsu?
Well, right now I'm a 10 a.m. coach and I'm a women's coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, it depends. I would say at least 5 times a week.
Yeah.
I don't just teach. I also do the whole class with everybody, because it's the only workout I get, and I'm obsessed with working out, which is why I started jiu-jitsu. But so I'm training at least 5 times a week. Sometimes it's, you know, more like 7, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Depending on how I'm feeling that week. So.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you being 40, you're like a youngin' to me. Like, you're a young kid because I'm 50. And honestly, like, I've had to focus more on recovery and sleep and stuff like that because in my 40s, I started jiu-jitsu at 40.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So it's a beating.
Yeah.
You know, and I just love it. I can't think of not doing it. I can't imagine not doing it. So, yeah, that's cool. So let's go back a little bit. Actually, let's go back a lot. Okay. Because when you and I first met, I think I was a blue belt and you were a white belt.
Yes.
We were both white belts. I can't remember. But I remember,
so.
I remember you came into the academy, and oh gosh, you were maybe a 3-stripe white belt.
I think I was, yeah.
And you moved here from Kansas, I believe.
Nebraska.
Central America,
yeah.
wherever the hell that is.
Who cares where that
is? So tell me about Nebraska. What prompted the move? What was going on there?
Well, I lived in Arizona in my early 20s. I came out here to go to graphic design school, and I dropped out with 6 months left because tattooing kind of found me.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this seems way more what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get into tattooing, but I ended up getting married briefly, and I had my son. And I needed to be around my family to raise him.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Nebraska thinking that I would only be there for a little bit. And then I was there for 7 years, and it was great to be around my family. My entire family lived there. But man, it's so cold there, and you never see the sun. And once you live in Arizona where it's like warm and sunny, it's really hard to go back to, tornadoes and freezing temperatures and just, I'm an outdoors person, and also Nebraska has no mountains, so it's not like you get to play in the and it barely snows. It's mostly just bitter cold.
Yeah,
so,
just enough to chill you to the bone.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to move back. I just wanted to be warm.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. No, when I was moving out here, I moved here from Virginia Beach, and before I moved out here, I had a buddy that his wife was Marine Corps officer or something like that, and they were stationed in Yuma. And he says to me, when the temperature drops below 70, you're going to want a long sleeve shirt. And I was like, no way, man.
Yeah.
Look at me. Yeah.
Yep,
it's like 65 degrees outside or something. I have a hoodie on.
I know. So, I got my winter coat to come over here.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about tattooing. How did you find tattooing?
I was going to graphic design school here in Arizona, and man, I was in like the HTML class learning how to build websites. It was so boring. And I was like, oh, this is it. I wanted to do something with art. I've always been an artist, I'd kind of messed up when I was 18 and 19 and fell into drugs. And after that, I was like, all right, I need to find something I love to do. And I pursued, trying to teach art. I didn't like that. I tried graphic design. And because I was going to college, I figured I'll just keep doing it, and find a career. Yeah. And then I had a friend, he was a neighbor here in Arizona, and he shows up one day, and he had bought me a tattoo starter kit. And,
no way.
Yeah, and he goes, because I was painting a lot, and he thought I was a really talented artist, and he said, I think you're wasting your time with graphic design. I think you should tattoo. And I'd never even, I don't even know how you start tattooing.
Wow.
So I went with my friend to get a tattoo, and I made her ask them because I was so nervous. Like, how do you start tattooing? And they ended up apprenticing me. And it was 2003, and it was a really toxic environment for women. Mm-hmm. I ended up quitting after a year of apprenticeship. I hated the way I was treated. Yeah. I don't like to be looked down on as a female or less than. So I quit. But after I had my son, I just thought I have to try to pursue it again, because if I want him to believe in anything that he can do, I have to show him I can do it too. I don't want to tell him oh, I had this cool dream and I gave up on it. Yeah. So I went back to tattooing because of my son. And, I found a really good shop in Nebraska. And, man, it was like I hit the ground running. It was so great, And then halfway through it, I moved back to Arizona and started my career all over again.
Which
is really hard to do. But
now, what was it like? The atmosphere in Nebraska, like you said, it's like mostly men, and it's, I don't want to say anti-women, but it's like male dominant profoundly, right? I mean,
in the tattoo industry.
Yeah. Now, would you say that it was the same atmosphere in Arizona, or is that a little bit different?
Yes. Well, so when I started, so I'll say 2007 is when I went back into it. It was primarily male dominant. I would go to tattoo conventions, and I would be sitting at a booth, and they would come up and say, when is the artist coming back? And I'm like, oh, I'm the artist. So I'd make a huge banner with my picture on it.
Yeah. I remember the banner. It's
cool.
Yeah,
I still have it. Yeah. And then when I came out here, it was 2014, and it was very much the same, but there was a lot more women getting into it, like young women. Mm-hmm. But man, it sometimes it's still a toxic environment for women to get into, you know. They think that they have to do anything and everything to get an apprenticeship, you know. But luckily through social media, women are learning that, I don't have to be treated this way, you know. And so there's a lot of women that are, you know, kind of going off on their own, you know, and learning how to tattoo from other women, you know, and it's really growing. So, you know, hopefully it'll continue doing that.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the parallels that I saw in your tattoo career and your jiu-jitsu career are, you know, you had to go to a shop and apprentice, right? And then you got to get a thumbs up from, I'm assuming, another tattoo artist, right? That allows you to, or the owner of the shop that allows you to start tattooing. Very similar to jiu-jitsu, right? You start kind of apprenticing as like maybe an assistant coach, or the person that always shows up and helps the instructor kind of, you know, show the move and stuff. And then one day they're like, hey, we need a women's coach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Very similar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it takes a few years before you're allowed to start tattooing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that process like
for tattooing? Well, it's different in every state. In Nebraska, you have to, they do a criminal background check, which, you know, I had to be, because I had misdemeanors from when I was 19, I had to be reviewed by a board of cosmetology people. And I wrote this letter, you know, and I made everybody cry there, I guess, because they were so touched by my journey. And
we can touch on that. I would love to go in, or not, whatever you decide.
I'm totally down. I have
cool.
I'm proud of where I've come from, you know, and I don't mind sharing any of my past, because, you know, everything I've gone through is going to give somebody hope at some point who's in that position.
I agree.
So, but in Nebraska, you have to be licensed in the county and the state. So you had to have 2 separate licenses. You had to be passed by the health board. So you had to do all this stuff. You had to prove that you like apprenticed in a shop for so many hours. And then every year you have to renew it. So it's very different in Nebraska. In Arizona, they just say like, you're good, you can start now. Like, there's really no laws out here, which is scary.
It's the Wild West, man.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that I learned a lot about bloodborne pathogens and safety and health concerns in Nebraska, because out here it's kind of, you know, it is the Wild West. I mean, you know, a lot of people don't understand any of that stuff. And so, but the reputable shops, you know, they'll make you apprentice for about 2 years, you know, cleaning and learning, and, you know, they'll let you tattoo while you do that. It's very different out here.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'd say overall about 2 years of an apprenticeship, and, you know, you get to start tattooing at that point. But the main thing is building your clientele and your connections with your clients. That's the hardest part, you know?
Yeah. I'm assuming that there's a lot of, like, you know, you're the person cleaning up and all that is, you know, working for the tattoo artist, maybe doing their scheduling or whatever. And is there a lot of politics that goes into that? Like, you know, if they like you apprentice faster than if they don't?
Absolutely. I have seen out here that women do kind of move a little bit faster, you know, and I've honestly seen, you know, prettier women go faster, you know, but man, it's hard to beat talent, you know. There's those people that come in and they're just so incredibly talented. It's like, man, we got to get them out here tattooing, you know, sooner. Let's push them to do bigger pieces, you know. I personally, I don't want to apprentice anybody. Maybe someday I will, but it's such a big, heavy task to. There's so much more involved in it that, you know, to me, it's like, I don't know if I have time to devote to somebody else, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you're an independent tattoo artist, right? You're basically your own business.
Yes.
So I think it'd be easier if you were just like a tattoo artist in a shop that's run by someone else, right? They do all the business crap, they do all that stuff, they do all the scheduling, all that shit, and then you can just focus on your tattoos, your schedule, and your apprentice, right?
Yeah, that would be amazing. But currently, I'm doing everything myself. So
So where's your shop? Where are you working?
I'm in. Should I give an address?
Yeah, whatever you like. Yeah, we want people to find you.
Okay, so I own my own studio in Mesa, Arizona. It's a private studio by appointment only, so I don't advertise where I'm at.
Okay.
But you know, people can reach me on Instagram at Amber Star Tattoo.
Perfect.
And I have a business line that, you know, people. I'm every year I'm trying to change and make it easier. Because now I'm booked 3 to 4 months out. And so I had to change my scheduling completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a private studio, and it was just an accident. I went there with a bunch of other artists, and we all decided collectively, and it was kind of after COVID when, I was in a shop that was letting anybody and everybody in, and I had clients that were too scared to go in there. And so I was like, well, I'll go to a quieter shop.
Yeah.
And then with that shop, we were renting this huge space that was like way too expensive.
Yeah.
So the owner of that place was like, let's go to these studios. We can all privately rent them with our own LLCs. And then, we'll still be like a business together, but independent.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then they all left, and now I'm there by myself.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and they're all doing their own thing. And everybody thought it would be difficult for me, but I'm super introverted, so I love it. I love being there by myself. So
yeah, that's so funny.
I thrive there.
Really? You're introverted. I would have never thought that.
I know, nobody knows it.
Yeah.
It's my secret.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So let's talk about the journey, right? Let's talk about getting from, let's talk about teenage Amber. Who was teenage Amber, and how did she evolve?
I was a terrible person. I can't say I was a terrible person. I was definitely a teenager. I experienced a tragedy when I was 16. I lost my best friend in a car accident. And, I was raised in this super, very strict religion, and I had very strict rules. My parents are amazing people, but they were trying to do what's best for my sister and I. And then when I experienced that tragedy, I just rebelled really hard.
Gotcha.
And I lied to my school and graduated early when I was 18, and I just started doing drugs like immediately. And I moved out, and I had no one telling me what to do. So I instantly just, did drugs. I did it for a whole year. And then, I had a few run-ins with the law. I had a few bench warrants because I didn't show up to court. And I actually, one day I went outside, and I like said this prayer that I was done and I needed help, and whatever needed to be done, I needed to stop. And I was tired of this life. I was tired of being a disappointment. And I knew that I was something. I had this feeling that I'm something so much greater than this. And if I was so good at destroying my life, imagine what I could do if I tried to focus on improving it. So,
wow. And you came to that realization on your own?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd stayed up for like 2 days doing drugs with all these people. And I just looked around and I was like, I don't belong here. And within the hour, police showed up at this apartment I was at, and they were looking for somebody else. And I said, I have warrants out for my arrest. If you want to take me, I don't know who this person is you're looking for, but I'll go. And they were like, oh, no, we don't have to take you. And I was like, no, I want to go.
Wow.
And they were like, okay, well, where are your shoes at? And I said I didn't have any. Like, I was wearing, Tommy Hilfiger overalls, a sports bra, and I didn't even have my contacts in. I didn't have shoes. I had lost literally everything.
Wow.
And they arrested me, and they were so nice to me, and they took me into jail, and I was crying, and they were like, it's going to be okay. And I was like, no, these are good tears. And I was there for 3 weeks. I spent 18 months on probation, and I completely turned my life around, after that. And I ended up working for AmeriCorps for a year, and I got a scholarship to any college I wanted to, which is why I came to Arizona.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you were in jail for 3 weeks?
Yes.
Wow. What jail? Do you mind if I ask what jail?
It was Lincoln, Nebraska. It's kind of, it was like a summer camp almost, but you don't get to go outside. I mean, the first week I spent in solitary confinement because they thought I was like coming down, and, and I was. And, then the last 2 weeks I spent, I made friends with every person there, and I would draw things for people, and I got everybody to work out with me, and I never worked out ever, and I saw this effect I was having on people, and I had to do something with that, know?
What was it like? Because I mean, you were on drugs for a year. What was it like going from doing drugs, being surrounded by those people, and then now you're like literally facing the reality of it, right? 3 weeks in jail. Mm-hmm. What were the first few days off drugs like? What's that feel? I don't know what that feeling was like.
Well, it wasn't until I got out of jail, I had this overwhelming fear of failing again. Mm-hmm. And so I had to recklessly abandon every single thing and person that was in my life. And I had to get away from Lincoln, Nebraska. And my aunt had just gotten a divorce and moved to Omaha, which was an hour away.
Okay.
And I actually, the day I moved there was September 11th, 2001.
Wow.
So the day the World Trade Centers, got attacked. And
so the world changed and you were changed all at the same time.
And
wow.
it was this monumental moment where I was like, I have to change, I have to be better. Like everyone has to. And, in some weird way, I didn't feel so isolated. And my problems felt so small in that moment,
Yeah.
Wow. And I was like, wow, if anything were to happen to me, what are people going to say about me? They're going to say, man, she had so much potential and failed, know, and I had a chance to change that. Yeah. So I knew I had to.
I love that. That's so awesome, man. I'm getting choked up. That's huge, man. So what was the first thing you did? Like you knew you had to change your life, right? What was the first step? Like what did you do first? I mean, you got out of town.
Yeah.
That's good. What was next? What was the next for you?
Finding a job. Yeah. And I was I hadn't worked for over a year.
Yeah.
So I went around and I was trying to get a waitressing job or a fast food job, and no one would hire me.
What? Because you were in jail?
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, okay. So I had a gap in my work experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
even at that age, like
yeah, I know. Yeah. And I was 19, and so I was like, oh, well, I was going to college or I was doing this, and nobody was hiring me. And I finally went into this restaurant. And I filled out my application. I handed it to her, and then I took it back and I said, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I was in jail. I messed up my life, and I just need someone to give me a chance." And she ended up hiring me because I was honest, and I realized like I have to be honest with people and not be ashamed of my past. I want to, if somebody can prove to me, I won't let them down. Yeah. And so I actually was a waitress for like years. I mean. Which I think everybody should be a server at some point in their life. I
agree. Yes, I agree.
It really teaches you how to treat people and, how to communicate with people even when you don't want to, And so, but yeah, I mean, I was a waitress for a long time, and I just tried to keep finding, where to fit, I was like a square peg in a round hole. I was just not fitting in anywhere, but really it was because I didn't even know who I was, Right. I didn't know what shape I was to even know where I was going to fit. So I just kept doing things and going where I felt like I was needed,
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah. So so you're working as a waitress for 5 years.
Yeah.
You know what I learned? I learned more about people in the 2 years I was serving than at any other point in my life.
Yes.
And remember those tables, like, you get the drink order right, and then, maybe an appetizer, bam, you nail it, and then the food comes, and it's all warm, everything's perfect, and then you bring the check, and you get a good tip, and you're like, man, that was a perfect table.
Yeah.
That was maybe 1 out of 15 for me, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a lady yell at me one time because I forgot her coffee, and I had a table of 18, and I just started at this job. And I went to grab the coffee pot so fast that I hit it against the soda machine, and hot coffee spilled all over the front of me and burnt me.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to keep working because
there was
nobody else there to serve. Yeah. And I mean, but the lady was so rude to me.
Yeah.
And after that, she apologized to me, and because she saw I kept going.
Yeah.
And, it just made me realize, like, I mean, you just have to keep going. You can't let those people affect you. And, if they see you're actually suffering and hurting, it'll change the way that those people look at you. You know, it's hard to see people as human when you're looking down on them,
right.
Yeah. And then when you make yourself a human to them, they suddenly realize that you're the same as them. You know, when you're covered in scalding hot coffee, they suddenly realize, like, oh my God, that's awful. And I did that to you,
Wow.
So.
Yeah. I had so 2 things that I remember like they were yesterday. And this is like a long time ago, more than 30 years ago. But there was one lady, and I remember she was yelling at me. And I'm like, I remember, like, it was one of those punishment didn't fit the crime kind of situations.
Yeah.
Like, this is like over the top. And I'm like, Oh, you're crazy. Oh, I get it. All right, cool. Then I was able to just kind of, yes, ma'am, of course, yeah. But she's fucking nuts, man.
Yeah.
She's just crazy. And then there was another one where a couple came in, cute little toddler, and they're like, oh, we need a high chair. Yeah, of course, and I'll go get it. So I went and got their drink order and the high chair at the same time. Now, those high chairs had a little swivel thing where you open it, put the baby in, right? And I open it, and they're putting the baby in, and I look, and there's 2 giant glasses of iced tea going right at the kid. Splash. Soaked him. Iced tea, freezing cold. He screams. We pick him up. We're toweling him off.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm half crying like I'm going to get fired today. I somehow kept my job. They left. I thought, I'm fired. Like, I'm going to get fired today. Didn't get fired. They probably didn't have enough people. But
exactly.
But they came back and sat in my section.
No way.
Yeah. That was like torturous, man. I was like,
oh no,
what can I do? I was bowing almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So that's a tough gig, man.
Well, that's good that they, saw you as human, like I say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So, all right. So what obviously you left that job after 5 years. What'd you do then?
I did several different jobs.
Okay.
I left a lot of them flipping them off because, when you're a server, man, this is like early 2000s too. So you're making like $1.75 an hour and you're living off of tips, and usually the management, and I always I hate to stereotype people because I've actually met some amazing managers. My last waitressing job, she was so amazing, and I'm still friends with a lot of the people I worked with because of her.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, the management, they hate their jobs. Nobody wants to be the manager because it's so involved.
Yeah.
And it's
a thankless job too, man.
It is.
Yeah.
And so then they take it out on, the servers, and God, that was just me all the time. So many times I would have to be escorted out and flipping them off, and I was like, I'll just get another job. I'll show you, and I did. But yeah, I did that and while I did that, I also worked for AmeriCorps and started an after school learning center for kids in Omaha, which is how I just did it for a scholarship basically.
That's great though. Yeah.
But that was pretty fun.
Yeah. So tell me about AmeriCorps and so what was your job there? What did you do?
So AmeriCorps is like the Peace Corps, but in America. You go to Chicago, you take some classes or learn some stuff. I don't really remember. It was cold. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
And windy. But you spend a year, and they give you money to start something that's going to help low-income families.
Gotcha.
And so I belonged to this, it was a nonprofit church called Mosaic Community Development. And a bunch of us worked for AmeriCorps, and we started this after-school learning center. And another girl and I, we taught art to children.
Oh, so cool!
This is when I discovered I don't like teaching children. I loved most of the kids, but there was a few that were problem children.
Sure, yeah.
And I never blame the kids. They were in a rough spot. Mm-hmm. But my the girl who was doing it with me, she had a lot more experience teaching, and she would allow that kind of behavior, and it was affecting other kids. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can. I like to help people who
want to be helped. Yeah. Or are willing to help themselves, right?
Yeah. And I realized that I could only go as far as they were willing to meet me, and maybe teaching children wasn't the thing because so many kids need you to go all the way to help them. Mm-hmm. They need you to cross the entire river and hold their hands through it. And I didn't think I was capable of doing that, So.
Well, it might be something that they're not getting at home.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And they expect someone to do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a natural thing, so it's really difficult,
Yeah, but there were some kids that were so great, and I love them so much, And, I hope they're doing amazing now. But,
I'm sure they are. Yeah. I'm sure they are. That's awesome. All right, so AmeriCorps, how did that end with AmeriCorps?
After a year, you either get $1,000. I don't know how it is now, but you either get $1,000 cash, and then they take taxes out, or you get a $5,000 scholarship to anywhere you want to go.
Whoa, cool.
And
all right.
I literally picked Arizona because it was the warmest place. I was like, I'm getting out of here,
Yeah.
And, so that's how it ended. And I think the Mosaic kept going for a long time.
That's cool.
And then they eventually stopped,
yeah, but that's a good legacy, though.
Yeah.
It hit a lot of kids. That's cool.
I know the church, I think, still stuck around for a long time.
Okay.
But, and I'm still I still am friends with, well, I'll say Facebook friends with most of the people from there. You know, they changed my life, and they picked me up when I didn't even know who I was.
Yeah.
And, you know, they accepted me in my wild state, and they loved me, and they were the reason why, you know, I made it through that whole year, you know, and I'm so extremely grateful for them. Like they'll never know how grateful I am, you know.
Yeah.
But after that, I just moved to Arizona. I didn't know a single person. I moved out here, you know.
What?
So, yeah.
You moved here all by yourself?
Yes, I didn't know anybody, but I had signed up at the college. It was a trade school.
Okay.
And then they provide you with an apartment, you know, that you share with other people.
Okay.
And so I came out here and I did that, you know.
Yeah.
My car got stolen like instantly when I moved here.
No way.
And I got it back, but I was like, oh, hey, welcome to Arizona.
Was it in bad shape when you got it back?
They ripped the radio out. And the AC didn't work for a long time. But, you know, here I was like wanting to experience warmth. And I was like, I got what I wanted. So, you know. But,
that's wild, man. What year was that?
So I moved here in 2003.
Okay.
And I went to college till 2005.
Okay.
And then that's when I quit and started tattooing.
Tattooing? Yeah. What was your first tattoo gig?
I worked at Mill Avenue Inc. in Tempe. It's not there anymore.
Okay.
There's a Jack in the Box in Tempe, and it was like right behind that.
Okay. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. There's like a Pita Jungle in that corner now. That place has been like 8 things since I moved here.
Yeah. They tore the building and everything down.
Yeah.
And I did that for, you know, a year, but you know, I didn't do any tattoos, but I did practice on myself and a lot of people. And I'm very sorry to any of those people, including, you know, some of my family members that they won't let me fix them. They're just rocking the trash tattoos. So,
you know. That's wild.
Yeah.
So, okay, so right when you're finishing college, someone gave you the tattoo kit. Do you still have that kit?
I don't think I do. I think I have portions of it.
Yeah.
The power supply had 4 dial. I don't know. The power supply is like what makes the machine run faster or slower, and this had 4 settings on it.
Yeah.
So it was like the needle catches in your skin because it's going too slow, or it's going so fast it's shredding you. So, you know, I don't think I have that one anymore. But you know, I have no idea what I was doing in the beginning. But I don't. I'm sure maybe somewhere I have that. But I do have some of my first machines. Yeah. You know. Yeah.
They've evolved a lot, huh?
Yeah, now there are pens, you know.
Wow.
And you just use a cartridge. You don't have to use needles or anything like that. And
really?
I mean, use a needle, but it's part of a cartridge now, so it's all in one. It's
whoa. Okay.
If I would have been able to learn like this, like people don't know how easy it is now to learn how to tattoo. You know?
Yeah. I mean, you still have to have the artistic piece to it,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah. What's the hardest part of doing a tattoo?
To me, the hardest thing, I draw everything for everyone. I custom draw it. So I like having my regular clients because when I draw, I can think about them and put their personality into the piece. So when I'm creating a new piece for somebody I've never met, most of the time we've only been talking over text.
Yeah.
I've never met them. So when they come in, I have no idea who they are or how they're going to be. You know, and so it's difficult to draw. But the most difficult part is sitting there for hours with one person.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to the point where now I tattoo. I mean, there's really no one I tattoo that I don't like.
Yeah.
You know, because I get to be picky about who you know, and if I tattoo somebody new and, you know, I don't like them, I won't tattoo them again. But that doesn't happen anymore. So the hardest thing is, you know, I'd like to say I'm somewhat of an empath. And so I sit there and you basically become this counselor to people. And I tell people my story. They tell me theirs. And I have so many hard stories to sit through, tragedies and loss. And, you know, as soon as somebody loses a loved one or a pet, they come to me and they'll call me crying. Can you get me in? I need a tattoo. And I have to sit there. And, you know, I've tattooed people for years past their tragedies. And they say that, you know, I'm the one that helped them or something. And that feels really good. Yeah. But I carry that with me forever, you know, and I'll leave traumatized by these stories. And my friend who actually came to visit, she's a therapist now and she has her own practice. And she tells me, you know, that you have to learn how to listen, but not carry it, you know, and that's something that the hardest thing for me was, and also on top of that, I've had people tell me just crazy stories and, and I carry all of them with me forever. So the hardest thing is like, as an artist, I love painting and sitting in my room by myself and listening to music and not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
So it drains I could train 6 hours of jujitsu a day, and it doesn't drain me as much as, a few hours of hearing someone's like story.
Like a tragic story.
Yeah. And it's heavy and it weighs on me a lot. So that's the hardest part, I'd say.
Yeah. I can imagine, someone suffering a loss, and literally, I mean, you and I have sat for 5 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And they probably go through beginning to end on that loss.
Yeah.
Wow, man,
and
that's
deep. Their stories are in their art now, and they are like, oh, when I first started, I was in a dark place, and now I'm here in this at the top of my sleeve in a better place, Oh,
and that's so cool.
That's cool, but it's like, oh, I'm still in that dark place with you.
Yeah, I'm still traumatized.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about. Okay, so 2003, college. 2005, left college, started tattooing. At what point? Well, okay, so when did you get married? Because you got married and then you had your son.
Yeah, I got married in 2006.
2006.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's when I moved here.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got married 2006, and then at that point, did you guys as a family move?
Yes.
Okay.
I was 6 months pregnant and I moved back home. Just because I wanted to raise my son around my family. I knew we'd have more support out there.
Sure.
And, I just wanted him to, like know my parents, you know, and get to experience grandparents like I did. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
How was that? I mean, how was that? How long did we don't have to talk about this, but how long did your marriage last?
We made it a little under 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had time to, your son and your ex had time to bond and all that.
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah. He fell off the deep end and, he wasn't raised, by the best parents.
Yeah.
And his sister is one of my best friends and she lives out here. And so my son has a deep connection with her and we spend all holidays with her. And
that's great.
So he has access to his dad's side of the family. His dad is actually, barely being in his life now. But so my son doesn't remember really any of him, growing up because he kind of went off the deep end and had to, he had to learn a lot of hard life lessons and, get in trouble with the law himself. And, it took him a long time to get out and get sober and, do all this. And I think he's doing well now, but, he's not really involved in my son's life at all. But, it just made me work that much harder, for my son. So, I don't think that there's any excuse when you have a kid and you're raising him yourself.
Just got to do it.
Yeah, you just got to do it. You got to, and you don't have to give up anything, You don't have to, and that's one thing about my son is I've never wanted him to feel sorry for himself and say that he had anything less than anybody else did, because he gets all the love from his mom full time.
Yeah.
I don't have to take breaks or, like, oh, go ask your dad,
Right.
I'm the full-time parent and, anything, he's a really good kid. So,
he is a good kid. Yeah.
I'd like to say that, I'd like to take all the credit for that. And my parents have helped a lot. So,
That's awesome.
They actually moved out here.
I heard.
So, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Man. When did they decide to do that?
I believe it's been 4 years. My my middle sister, so I'm the baby. I have two sisters.
Yeah.
And the middle sister moved out here as well and works for Mesa PD. She got a job, and when she moved, my parents were like, well, we might as well move there.
Yeah, right.
Like, why are we? They retired, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is awful! Like, what are we gonna do today? Shovel snow and then mow the grass? When there's grass, and that's your life." So they moved out here.
Wow, wow, that's cool. So when did you start jiu-jitsu? What was your first day?
I started in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I had done a few years of Muay Thai.
Okay.
Which I fell in love with. My Muay Thai coach, Kurt Padani, actually just passed away a few months ago from lung cancer, and he didn't smoke or anything, and he was a 2-time world champion, and he was the most amazing person that you could ever meet, and he taught me a lot about martial arts, but at the time I was like 29. My career was just taking off. My son was starting kindergarten. I was driving an hour to go to his school.
Wow.
And I just couldn't. It was too much. I was being very overwhelmed, and I wasn't. He saw so much in me, and I was like, I just can't. If I had time, I could be this. And I actually quit going, and then I just worked out a lot, and then I ended up finding Mid-America Martial Arts in Lincoln, Nebraska, which I think they only have one in Omaha now, but Team Vaghi, Rodrigo Vaghi was the person who was like the head guy in that.
Okay.
But they only had like 2 Muay Thai classes a week, and my one of the owners of that gym, I was like, man, you should really like do a few more Muay Thai classes. And he was like, or you could try jujitsu. And I was like,
right. Or you could try jujitsu.
I was like, oh no, it's gross. They like put butts in your face and sweat on you, and it's disgusting,
and it's awesome.
And I was like, and I don't want to hurt my hands. And
it's a good point.
He points out this guy, Nick, there was a hand surgeon. And he goes, well, Nick's a hand surgeon. So, I mean, if you're too scared, that's fine. And I was like, okay, then. And I tried it out, and I ended up, I tried it out, and I fell in love with it. And, the first black belt I met came over, and he was like, wow, you're a natural at this, and
wow.
I'd heard that a lot when I first started going to MMA gyms, and then I found out it's because the people saying that to me were hitting on me and trying to get with me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pervs in the in the industry, unfortunately. But and I found all the bad schools first, but then some fighters would see me and say like, let's take you to where you're going to be appreciated and respected, and so. A lot of people saw that I was good. But this school, this guy comes down and he's like, wow. And he showed me this move and I did it right away. And he was like, all right, we have a natural. And I just took that so personal, and I knew it. He wasn't saying that any other way than authentically.
Yeah.
And I just became obsessed, and I wasn't even there for a year when I decided to move to Arizona. And, there was no women there.
Yeah.
And I'd already done like 3 tournaments, and I had already become addicted, you know?
Yeah.
There's
that.
Your pupils get huge, and you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And the guys there, my last day, they showed up, and a few of them got emotional, and they were like, please don't quit jiu-jitsu. Like, promise us that you won't quit. So, I made it a point when I moved here to find a school right away, and I found, Paul was the first person to call me back. So, thank God.
Which is hilarious that 2 people at the promotion said Paul Nava was the only person to call me back. He never calls anybody back.
No, he doesn't even, he'll text sometimes, but.
10 days later.
Yeah.
Like the moment has passed, Paul.
Yeah, and I was just like, he was so enthusiastic that, I moved here and I had been like, man, driving hard and tattooing. I was so like, I made so much money tattooing in Nebraska, and I moved out here and was like, didn't even have a job yet,
Yeah.
And I basically committed career suicide almost. But, and I was like, I could just take a break. But Paul was so enthusiastic and so excited. And he's like, all right, what day can you come? I'm going to make sure that there's girls there. And okay, I'm going to have you start this day. And I was like, there was something about him that I was like, well, I don't want to let him down.
Yeah.
So I had to go.
Yeah.
And thank God I did, because thank God I didn't become lazy, which would have been very easy for me,
Yeah.
So.
When I first walked into Paul's academy, I was looking for a jiu-jitsu academy. And my friend Kevin, who's going to be on the podcast, he was going to nursing school with Amy. I've said this story 100 times, but he was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and he wouldn't shut up about it. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, gosh, I wish he would just shut up.
Yeah.
But, when I decide I want to get myself in shape, he is the reason why I Googled jiu-jitsu in Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah.
So I had my first class, 2 classes at Rough House. And then I went and saw Paul, and my next stop was going to be Gustavo Dantes. But Paul's a black belt under Gustavo. So I'm like, oh, just stick around here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so before I went to one of his classes, I was coming back from a business trip. I have this like button-down shirt, tie halfway undone, just came back from the airport. And I knew where his school was. So I kind of drove by kind of slow through the parking lot, lights on. So I stop in, and they were training really hard. It was super intense. And then he came off the mat, and we talked for like a good 5-7 minutes. And I'm like, don't you have a job to do right now? But it meant so much, just the same enthusiasm that you felt. I felt that enthusiasm from him as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this energy that he has when he talks to you, and it never stops.
No.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, even
it
the
hasn't
conversations you have
stopped.
today.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
very grateful for that, you know, and the women that I met right away, you know, that I still know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm grateful. I had no female training partners in Nebraska.
I
So
can imagine. Yeah.
coming out here and having them was fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So we had, at the time, our team was growing. And we had a lot of, I mean, I can't say a lot of women. We had pretty good women. And there was an influx after that.
Yeah.
Remember that? When a bunch of people started coming over? And, man, we had probably arguably one of the best women's team in Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it showed, you know, tournament-wise, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You guys were killing it. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
Who was the women's coach at the time when you showed up?
Nana.
That's right.
Yeah. She was the women's coach at the time.
Yeah.
And I think then we had Jolie and
yep.
then Maria, and then nobody else could do it. And they're like, "Will you do it?" And I was like, "I don't know how to teach."
Yeah, the apprenticeship program just
I was
leveled
by
up.
accident. They're like, "Just can you cover a few classes?" And then they're like, "By a few, I mean forever."
Forever.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was so excited. I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay."
Yeah, and it's really rare that you have like a women's program that's so supported. You have a really good following there, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And
I mean, ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
It's you know, I have to say this past year I got the 10 a.m. coaching position, which I've been training 10 a.m. for the past 8 years, and I've seen it change, you know, and it's my special, like, I love training at 10 a.m. and it's close to my heart, and the people who have been at it a long time with me, you know, we're still there. But, you know, the past year I kind of focused a lot on the 10 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then the women's team, you know, it did get small.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggle between, like, should this be for beginners? You know, so if I try to go too hard, then the new girls are scared.
Yeah.
You know, if I try to go too light, then the upper belts don't want to come.
Yeah.
But one thing I have noticed and I want to stick with is not every woman is built like me who comes in ready to get, you know, kneed in the face and not cry about it.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've cried a lot at the gym, on the mats, in my car, in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, for multiple reasons. Mainly because my ego got hurt or something, you know. But, you know, a lot of women don't have that hardcore drive to be a beast. And one of my favorite things to do is show a woman her inner beast, you know, and we all have it. And not everyone is capable of bringing it out themselves. Yeah. And I felt like I had to. It was kill or be killed. You know, I remember in Nebraska, I got a rib dislocated. And I was laying there like, I can't breathe. And the guys were like, can you scoot off the mat and get out of the way? And I was like, oh my, okay. And I like roll over and I was like, I'm just going to go. And it was horrible. And like, you know, not every woman is like that.
Yeah. I don't want to discourage people from trying jujitsu, but yes, that's a thing.
It is. Yeah. But you know what? And that's an example of, you know, some people want you to be really tough. And if you're going to go to a gym and, you know, you jam your pinky finger and you don't want to like show up anymore, you know, there's the people who are like, you know, diehards that are like, oh, it's just a pinky finger. You can train with that. What's wrong with you? You know, like just put tape on it.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's the people that are like, oh no, that really hurts. And I don't want to do it. And I have my job and
I get it.
You know, and for women, it's way different because a lot of women have trauma. And anytime you put pressure on them of any kind, or they get a little bit of their hair ripped out, they'll start crying.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of women will have a mental breakdown. You know, if you take side control and pressure them, they have a mental breakdown. And I've had a lot of women run off and lock themselves in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Because they might have past trauma.
Yeah.
They don't recognize that they haven't let their inner beast out. They're still you know, wanting to be a victim, and that's totally fine. So to me, the women's team is a bridge to the other classes because some women are terrified to go out there and roll with a man. They see these big dudes, and you know, and I have some big guys at the 10 a.m. that I'll roll with, and it took me a long time to roll with them because they had to like show me that they were not going to hurt me.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the women, you know, I wait for that moment where they cry, and then I talk to them and I say, this is the moment where you get to choose. Do you want that side of you that says you can't do it and you have to cry and break down? Do you want that side of you to always take over? Or do you want to accept that you're a beast and that you don't always have to be this way and do want to fight for yourself, you know, and you can show up every day and you can cry every day and I'll still support you. But if you quit on yourself, that part of you that wants to quit will always quit.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it, man. I there's a couple things that come to mind when you say that. The first one is, you know, when I think one of the saddest things that I hear people say is, I never knew how strong I was.
Yeah.
Because they've never put themselves in positions like that to be strong, right? Because it's a muscle you got to work on,
yeah,
right?
It is.
And then when the world comes crashing down, you just take a deep breath and you're like, okay, what's the first step, right?
Yep.
I've been in bad situations before, albeit these are not life-threatening positions, right?
Yeah,
but it's still, it's very difficult. When you do hard stuff, you're exercising that tough muscle, right?
Yeah.
But I remember you and I had a conversation once, and this is like, maybe you just got your brown belt or something, and you said something that really, really affected me. And you said that you needed a strong woman around you, so you decided to be that one.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm getting choked up right now. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, who does that, right? Everybody's looking for something to hang on to. Everybody's looking for somebody to lean on. You literally told yourself you were going to be that person to lean on. I'm sorry, I'm getting...
Oh, that makes me cry.
I'm going to get some... I got Kleenex.
It's a subject to talk amongst yourselves. Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island.
I don't know if you need one, but I need one. Oh, my God. All right. But just that, I mean, you're that's a leader, man. That's a leader. You're a born leader.
You know, and my jiu-jitsu career, I haven't won a lot, you know, and I've kind of gotten used to the fact that, you know, it's tough to do everything I'm doing and devote you know, because I almost have these mental breakdowns before every tournament because I have to sacrifice so much to get to that tournament, and I can't always be in tournament mode. I've got my kid and my job, and they take priority. And I've realized, you know, my son's 15. I've got a few more years, and then, man, I know I'm gonna kill it. And, but, you know, I refuse to think that I'm not good at jiu-jitsu because of that. And I found in teaching that I have a way of getting people to listen to me, and I've done that with tattooing for 15 years. You know, I've gotten people to change their lives, and people have changed my life. You know, and so I recognize that I had that ability, and I recognize that, you know, we have this idea that everyone's supposed to be and think like us, you know, and that's completely unrealistic. I realized that just because I found out how to be strong for myself, that doesn't mean that another female or male should do that. And I can't look down on them because they can't. I like to be strong for them, you know, and show them that, you know, I'm that person that's going to believe in you. And man, I've seen it. I've gone out and dropped words of encouragement on somebody right before they go out and compete, and I've seen them kill it. Yeah. You know, and I've also seen them not kill it. Yeah. But lose with a smile on their face and say that was the most fun I've ever had. Yeah. Because they said, you know, I had one girl that she went out and did her first tournament and she lost, and she stood up and I was smiling and cheering her on so much. She was like, I just smiled and I had so much fun. They didn't raise my hand, but who cares, you know? Yeah. And I recognize not everyone's that way. But man, if I could make them feel that way for like half a second and change their life, you know, why wouldn't I try to do that? Yeah, you know? That's so cool. Yeah, I've got a student. She reminds me a lot about you. Of you. She's like a soccer mom. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And not a super athlete, but not a non-athlete. Like, she's pretty athletic, but she started jiu-jitsu completely out of her comfort zone. Yeah. And she started feeding off of other people's energy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this guy does this, I'm going to do that. She does this, I'm going to do that. And she's like, you know, we're talking like, when I say like soccer mom, like, you know, like teachers would ask her like, hey, can you build this giant whatever for Christmas? And she would do it. Oh, wow. Like, she does it for the academy too. She does all these really cool things. But she did her first tournament. Oh, wow. Yeah. I think she lost in the first round. But she came off the mat and she's like, whatever I have to do that again,
that's what I'm going to do from this point
amazing.
on. Isn't that awesome? Like
Yeah.
going from like, sweaty guys to like, she's digging it, and she's going through her own little stuff right now. It's keeping her off the mats a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I there's no doubt in my mind she's going to be back doing it.
Yeah. I feel like there's always going to be something that gets in your way of jiu-jitsu, but I always tell everyone, like, you just come back, allow the things in life to happen, but no matter how much time passes, you can come back. And I feel like, if you don't see a path, you have to make one.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't make that path for yourself. Not everyone is capable of making their own path.
Yeah.
But, if you can make somebody's journey a little bit better and guide them a little bit, like that's the way to do it, and it's cool to hear that other women are like feeding off the infectious joy of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. And and I, that puts a little pressure on me as a coach, right?
Yeah.
And you know the pressure, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to be that role model. You want to be, anybody that I bleed with, cry with, sweat with on the mats. That's my brother. That's my sister, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we are a different kind of people. And man, I don't know. When I talk about gravitating to them, it's like when I do something, I go all in, and I have the same feeling for people, the people that I'm around with jiu-jitsu. It's not like they're pulling me. It's like I'm falling. Like I can't help but want to be around people like you. I can't help to just want to be at an open mat and just be this sopping wet pile of mop. You know what I mean? This
absolutely.
Right? I can't help it.
Yeah.
Like other normal humans don't want to do that. Like I get it.
Yeah.
But we're not normal humans.
No, and I am. You say I'm not. I don't seem introverted, but I'm such an introvert. You couldn't get me to go. If I hadn't had years of tattooing, I would be sitting here like, what do I say
Next
now?
question, please. Next.
And I would just be saying like really weird things and over talking. But jiu-jitsu has given me this confidence that I didn't have, and it's given me this friendship. I've never in my life had such a great group of friends that are such amazing people.
Yeah.
Like you guys are the people who held me together when my life was falling apart and I didn't know, what direction I was going, and jiu-jitsu was the light that was like, just head towards that light right there, and it was the people. It's not the sport. I could have been in a bad school and quit forever, but like you said, you gravitate towards those people that you just want to be around.
Can't help it. I
yeah,
can't help
and
it.
there's no one like jiu-jitsu people. I love going to a tournament now, and I've spent 8 years here, and so people finally, kind of know who I am a little bit. And I go to a tournament to coach, and I'm getting approached by people all over. Some people about my tattoos, and some people about, oh, I saw that last tournament you did, or one, they're like, oh, I saw that one time you were crying. I'm like, oh, every time. I go to a tattoo convention, and it's just like ego and like drugs and drinking, and like it's loud music, and a lot of people know me, but there's no love. It's this strange I mean, there is love, and I can't say there's no love.
I'm sure
there is some love,
but there's
like
competition too, right?
Absolutely. And you're going to a tournament, a jiu-jitsu tournament, to compete with people, and there's nothing but love.
Yeah. Your loss is not my. It's, how should I put this? When I win, it's not because I want the other person to lose. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yep, it does.
But like your loss is not my gain. You know what I mean? Like it's this like this energy. This it's hard to explain. The moments before we engage, I can feel the rush right now.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome because I know, because I compete against this guy, Doug. He's been on the podcast. Hilarious, by the way. You got to watch the episode. But I compete against Doug a lot. And I know how hard he works. Yeah. And he knows how hard I work. So when we meet, it's like, it's literally a 50-50 shot who's going to come up on top. And that's so much fun, man. There is no dominating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I feel that way about everybody that I train with.
Yeah. I absolutely. And as a coach, when you've been training somebody or working with somebody for years, and they get close to submitting you one day. Yeah. You're like, oh, God damn it. They got lucky, or I let them get to that point. But in all reality, on the inside, I'm like, man, I'm going to take a little credit for that they just about beat me because, I've been encouraging them. And, the day that somebody I used to stomp on submits me or passes my guard, I'm so happy and excited, but also like, dang it, I'm never letting them do that again, I'm never going to underestimate them. But when, they make me turn up my level, and it's the most amazing feeling when this person who you used to just have to kind of take it easy on, is just destroying you.
Yeah, I actually had that happen this morning. Oh, one of my white belts. He'll be a blue belt soon. This guy Leo. At the end of the round, I was like, "Hey man, I like what you did in the beginning with that step over." He literally walked past my guard. We shook hands and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? I had to recover right away. And then I was like, okay, I got to put it on him a little bit just so we understand each other again.
Well, and I've been on the other end of that. I've been rolling with, I remember I rolled with you one time and I was like, what the fuck? Like you just like kicked my ass really hard. And I was like, so all the other times you were lying to me, and I always say to my students that is the biggest sign of respect when an upper belt or somebody you've been training with forever turns it up on you and just whoops you.
Yeah, I had to.
That is Dave Blau, he's massive. He's like 3 of me.
Yeah.
And he, right after I got my black belt, he showed up with donuts and then like rolled with me so hard that day.
Awesome.
And I thanked him for it because that's him showing me respect. That's showing that I no longer view you as somebody that I can take it easy on anymore. Right. You've gotten to the point where I have to turn it up on you.
Yeah, you have no choice. Yeah,
so I love that feeling.
Yeah, no, and it is. We definitely have a lot of respect for you. Forget about the belts and all that other stuff. Just the fact how much shit you've been through in the past 10 years. You know what I mean? I don't know if you want to talk about it, but
I don't mind. Yeah.
But when you got your black belt, so I'm sure all academies do this, but NAVA allows us some time, to express, our gratitude towards the class and give a little speech. But you were talking about so many things where you had so many reasons to quit.
Yeah.
And you decided not to. So talk about that. What was it about the jiu-jitsu or whoever that was holding you together when all those things were going bad? And talk about a couple of things that went bad.
So I moved here and I was like in, the worst relationship known to man.
Yeah, he was an asshole.
Yeah. And whenever you hear a woman say like, and you look at her and she's in an abusive relationship and you say like, why didn't you just leave? And I would be that person that would say that. And let me tell you, you can't. It's hard.
Doesn't work that way.
But then I did. And I had to realize that like I had to remove myself and have no place to live. And so my son and we had my car and our stuff and my dog and my cats, like all this stuff.
Plural?
Yeah,
plural?
Cats.
Awesome.
I still have one of them. And the other one passed away. But we were living on this girl's couch. And, I just, divine intervention, this woman, I was tattooing her son and she was like, man, I really wish you needed a place to rent because I have this beautiful house that has an art room, in this loft area. And she ended up renting me this house. But before that, and I mean, I had no credit. I had no money. She didn't make me put a deposit down, nothing. She didn't do a credit check, anything. She just has said, rent is this much, and it was so much. But I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep this house, right? But before that, I was living on couches. Yeah. I stayed at a friend's house. I stayed at several friends' houses.
Did you ever have to spend the night in your car?
I did sleep in my car. Yes. Yeah. We stayed at a hotel one night.
Okay.
But we slept in my car. I had you just fold the back seats down. Okay. And it was like a bed. My son was like, I love this. I'm camping. Like, oh my God, I'm so old. This is horrible. But I just kept going to the gym, to the 10 a.m. class. I didn't know what else to do. My mind was, I was losing control of my mind. And I just thought, I went through a horrible divorce in Nebraska. It was, really toxic for about 5 years. He just relentlessly made my life hell. and you know, I came out of the frying pan right into the fire, and I was like, ugh, again, like, why do I keep making these decisions? And so the only thing that made me forget what I was doing was the hour and a half that I was on the mats. You know, my son and I would go to jujitsu. He would sit there, and for that whole time, I didn't have to think about my problems, and I would leave. You know, you get that endorphin release when you work out really hard and you 100%. Get your butt kicked. And I was a little white belt, and you know, it really motivates you to keep going. And you know, having a past of drug use, I could have easily gone into drinking, or you know, because I love to be self-destructive, and so jujitsu is to me a form of self-destruct, you know, in a way. You know, you're going, you're torturing your body. And Paul showed up one day and he gave me my blue belt at the 10 a.m. And I remember, you know, I told him what had happened, and he was like, oh, just keep training. He was like, you can talk about it if you want to after class, but while you're here, don't think about anything but jujitsu. And so I was like, okay, I will, you know, and then I did. And then my life started. I got that house, you know, I started picking up my business. I started devoting, but it was because I had a healthy outlet that kept encouraging me to keep going, you know, and my problems, you know, you have all these problems in life, but when you're under somebody who's like 200 pounds and they're putting side control pressure on you, you can't think about your life. You're like, I just want to get away, you know, and it makes, when you fight out of those positions, you're like, well, I can fight out of these life positions, and you end up paralleling jujitsu to your life. Yeah. You know, and the fight that you do in jujitsu is a fight that you do in your life, you know, and Paul ended up, when I was a blue belt, he ended up having his heart attack. Yeah. And I was rising my life up at that point, you know, and I felt like I was doing really good. And it was right before the Copa Bella all-female tournament, and all us girls got together and we're like, we have to win this for Paul. And he actually ended up showing up. Wow. And that was the first thing he had done since his heart attack. And we were like, oh, like I was too scared to hug him, you know, and we were like, we got to win for Paul. And I actually got my first gold medal, but it was in the open. But I lost my division. Then I was like so mad. I went to the open and I won that. But all of us did so good at that tournament. And we just killed it, and we did it for Paul. Yeah. And that's when I was like, I have to show him that, you know, he saw something in me that I didn't even see. Mm-hmm. And he kept believing in that version of, same thing. And that's a gift that somebody has, you know, and he has that gift. He doesn't lie to you. Paul never tells you something. If you're doing something wrong, he'll tell you. If you're doing something right, he'll tell you, but like after a while, you know, and when you get a compliment, you earn that compliment. Yeah. And he believed in me from day one. And I was like, man, I never lived up to that version of me that he saw. So I have to do that, you know, and you know, Copa Bella, we all did it for him. And then I was like, I just can't stop. And so I just kept doing it, you know, and I had to go through so much like mental trauma, and you know, I had to hold it all in. And you know, they say never hold your feelings in. That's why you have jujitsu, because you don't have to. Yeah. You know, you can take out everything in jujitsu, and you can learn how to manage your feelings better. You know, like I said, the woman who gets her hair ripped out for the first time and runs to the bathroom crying, you know, you work on not allowing that to affect you, you know, and then out in real life, you work on not letting things that have happened to you affect you anymore. Yeah. You know, and it's to me, it's one of the best sports you can do. And I'm 40, you know, you're 75,
80.
So
not a day over 85.
You know? And so, you know, it just shows you that like, at any point in your life, you have the ability to fight for yourself, and, there's no excuse. Yeah. You know?
And one thing I want to point out when we got to rewind just a little bit. When we say, you know, when we talk about Paul and the effect that he has on people, and how much he means to us individually, there are so many people that have come and gone through those doors. And we always, you know, we give Paul all the credit, obviously, but without Leslie, I don't know that Paul is Paul without Leslie. Yeah. And what does a relationship with Leslie mean to you?
So Leslie, when I first met her, we always joke about this because she's like my best friend now. But she wanted a tattoo for me. And so she's like, oh, let's meet at a coffee shop. And we're all sitting there like all proper. And I'm this train wreck of a person trying to hold back the train wreck.
Right.
And she was doing the same thing. And we were both like all like sitting proper with our legs crossed. I had my little notepad. I was asking her questions, drinking coffee. And
oh my gosh, that's
funny. Oh my God. And now we're like the most ridiculous people in public. Like we have all these inside jokes with each other. She said she went to this like retreat on the East Coast, and she was saying all these things that like her and I die laughing, and like she said it was like crickets and no one was laughing. But
yeah.
she's my, you know, she's my best friend. And there was a moment where you know, and when you tattoo somebody, that's when I really get to know somebody. And so I tattooed her a lot, and I heard her story and all the things that she had gone through.
Yeah.
You know, and she has, you know, this rare condition that affects her whole body, and her children have it, you know, and she has so much that she is fighting against and is not letting it stop her.
Yeah.
So she called me one day and was like, I want to meet you for coffee. And I didn't have $1 to my name. Wow. You know, I was, you know, like unplugging the refrigerator so I didn't run out of power sometimes, you know. I was like, oh, I don't want to go, you know, I don't like going places and like not having the money to pay for it or whatever. And she was like, just meet me at this coffee shop. So I went there and I was like, oh, I don't want to go talk about my feelings. This is dumb, you know? And we just start talking and we're laughing like we're our normal selves.
Yeah.
And she just like, it's almost like she took the table and like wiped everything off and was like, listen to me. Let me tell you that, you know, I'm going to tell you about me and when I was feeling hopeless. And, you know, I heard her story and all the things that she was going against that she couldn't help. You know, nothing that she was fighting was her own fault.
Yeah. Everything was out of her control.
Yeah. And she goes, and I remember thinking I had a pinky finger hanging on the edge of this cliff. And I realized that at least I still have a pinky finger. I haven't quite let go. And that was enough to pull me up. You know, and she's like, and you have to fight for yourself, because I was at the point where, you know, I wasn't suicidal or anything like that, but man, I wanted to give up. Yeah. You know, I just, it was so hard to try and keep fighting and keep being the strong person for my son. And we all have this, I feel like all of us have this, like latch in our bodies that you pull and you just escape.
Yeah.
And you give up everything and everything crashes and burns, but you feel like, well, you know, it's better than continuing to suffer. I'm just going to bail on my life and quit, you know? And I had already done that before. I already knew how hard it was to do that. It's easy to do it. It's like a drug. It's a temporary release.
Yeah.
And then to recover from that is so hard. So I was like, I can't quite quit, but I don't know what to do. I'm in this limbo of like, I don't want to fight anymore.
Yeah.
And she told me that. And I was sitting here feeling like I had egg on my face because I'm like, oh, I did all these things to myself, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't choose to be in a terrible relationship. I didn't choose to put, you know, to have that outcome, but I did, you know, I did choose to go against my gut instincts with this person and do things that I was taking big chances on that had, you know, a chance of a big failure.
Yeah.
And I knew the risk I was taking when I did them.
Yeah.
She didn't have those choices. And so, you know, I was sitting there listening to this thinking like, I feel like such an idiot. Like if she can do it and she has all these things going against her, what is my excuse for not winning right now? What is my excuse for not trying?
Yeah.
And I mean, after that, I was like, I have to focus on my career and making money. I did so good in Nebraska. I knew how to run my business. I'm really good at doing that. You know, I know there's a million other artists that are better than me, but I know how to run my business really well. I know how to get clientele. And I was like, just fucking do it. So I did.
I love it.
Yeah. After her, I was like, no more excuses. And I literally didn't turn back from that moment.
That's great. Yeah. You know, one thing I noticed about your whole story, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone because I set an alarm yesterday and it's going up. And if I acknowledge it, then I might screw things up.
Oh, no,
so
you're fine.
I'm going to be swiping at the phone.
You're fine.
But what I notice is like, yes, you did take some big chances, but they were all in the right direction. And what I also noticed just hearing your story is every time you put yourself in a situation where like, okay, let's see what happens, right? Getting off of drugs, moving, doing all these things, focusing on your business, raising deciding to be a single mom and, doing all these things. There's just something out there that's putting the right people in your path every step of the way.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I say that is because there's somebody out there that is in your shoes 10 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever it was. And they're so afraid to take that first step because the unknown is freaking scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess my message and the message I'm getting from you is if you take that step, you can make it happen.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people wait for the right people to come into their lives and they wait for the right moment. And you're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be your own hero. But if you just start moving forward in a direction with this hardcore intention of making it, and you can't have your eyes so like tightly set on an end result because you will be met with so much disappointment if that end result can't be moved.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be able to have a loose end result. Like, I just want to start jujitsu.
Yeah.
You can't say, I'm going to get my black belt in this amount of time, but I've never walked through the doors yet.
Right, yeah.
Because you'll disappoint yourself in 5 years when you haven't even walked in the doors yet.
Yeah.
And so, but, those moments are never going to come until you make them happen.
Yeah.
And if you're waiting for the right motivation to do it, it's not going to come. You have to create the habit and the mindset. And you have to drive forward with habit and mindset. And your goals and the people will fall into place for you.
Yeah, 100%.
I did it as an experiment with my life, and I'm living proof. When I was standing up there getting my black belt, I realized, like, this whole thing was an experiment to see if I could do it, and I did it.
Yeah.
And I did it with this relentless intention that, well, what do I have to lose if I don't try? If I try, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at men getting black belts, it's a big achievement. Don't get me wrong. It's a big achievement because we have our head trash as well. And it's pretty bad. My demons visit me at 2:30 in the morning. They're really nice that way.
Yeah.
And they don't let me go back to sleep. Yeah.
Same.
But if you look at the pool of black belts on that wall, there was 24 of us.
Yeah.
And there were 2 women.
Yeah.
That's a really small percentage. And for you to accomplish all of that with all of this adversity that you had from a very young age. I mean, to me, you're a kid still.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. But I'm super impressed. I'm super proud of you. I've told you this 100 times, but I'm super proud of you.
Well, thank you. And you've been a huge inspiration to me. And you've always come over and said these one-liners to me. It's like you know what I need to hear. And I take them to heart and I listen to them because you've been this huge motivation to me. And you were the first person I thought of when I was a blue belt, thinking like, could I be Paul's first female black belt? And I was like, well, Alex like blasted through all his belts and did it. And how did you do it? You tried hard every day.
Every day.
You competed as much as you could, and you tried hard every day. Yeah. And I was like, so that's all I have to do.
I set one goal that I never achieved.
What's
every
that?
Belt, white belt, I'm going to be the best white belt on the mat. Nope. Thanks a lot, Brendan. Blue belt, I'm going to be the best blue belt on the mat. Nope. There was like 7 or 8 better than me. Purple belt, I'm going to be the best, best brown belt. Like that was my goal. Every single time I tied a belt on, I'm going to be the best one on the mat.
Yeah.
And I tried every single day. That was my goal. That was the outcome that I wanted. And you know what? I became pretty good.
Yeah.
Not great, but I'm pretty good. You know what I mean? I wasn't the best on the mat, but but when you have that mindset, like you said, and you have that drive, what can stop you? I mean, you're going to be the best version of yourself, period. And let me tell you something. You can't do anybody else. You can only do you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're doing you perfectly right now.
Yeah.
Right? But there's also a better version that you're working towards, and you're a perfect example of that.
Yeah. And I think not ever getting to the point where you're like, well, I'm the best I am right now and I don't have to try anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's something that when I talk about paralleling your life to jujitsu, you don't ever get to the point in jujitsu where you're like, well, I got my black belt, I'm the best. No, now you're at the bottom.
Yeah.
And you continue to improve.
Yeah.
In tiny little increments.
Yeah. Yeah. When people ask me about what it's like to get a black belt, it's like it's kind of like day one as a white belt. You're walking on the mat like, okay, here we go. You put the black belt on, you start walking towards a padded wall going, no one's stopping me.
Yeah.
Over here with these guys.
Yeah. No one's found out that I'm fake. Oh God.
Yeah. But listen, tell people how they can find you. Tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want tattoos, if they want advice, if they want to do jiu-jitsu, if they want to reach out and just have somebody to bounce something off of. How can we find you?
The best place to find me is Instagram. It's all one word, all lowercase, Amber Star Tattoo. Just AMBERSTAR and then tattoo. And I have my I have a work line on there that's for appointments only. And it's on my Instagram. If you go, that's the very top. I do need to change my Instagram. It still says I'm a brown belt. But, and that's primarily the best way to reach me. If it's concerning tattoos, I only open my books every now and then, so you won't get a response right away.
Yeah.
If it's jiu-jitsu related, just start, because I usually get to see the first line of what people are saying. So just put jiu-jitsu related at the top, cool. And so I'll respond faster.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even if, anybody has any questions about jiu-jitsu or wants to come to a class, or talk to me about their troubles, I'm a great ear. And if you really want to, pick my brain, you can come get a tattoo from me and you'll get me for a few hours. So
there you go. Yeah. And I can vouch, guys. Amber's a great coach. She's been doing this a long time, and I'm blown away by how far she's come in such a short period of time. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, a very short period of time. But before you go, we have the lightning round of questions.
Okay.
There are no wrong. Well, there's one wrong answer, but that's just my opinion.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and just fire away as fast as you can. All right.
Okay.
Name a game show you think you could actually win.
Wheel of Fortune.
What's your favorite cheat meal?
Firehouse Subs.
Okay. What's? I think you made that shit up.
I couldn't think fast enough. I don't work well under pressure.
Oh my gosh. What's the longest you've gone without brushing your teeth?
2 days. 3 days.
Nice. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Anima by Tool.
Ooh, nice. What's a stupid song you secretly like?
Britney Spears. I can't think of the name of it.
How does it go?
It's on her Black album.
You gotta sing
where
it.
She shaved her head. I can't even think of how it goes right now. Piece of Me. Piece of You.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
All right. Let's see. Do you sleep in or take naps?
I neither.
Okay. PlayStation or Xbox?
Neither.
DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
Okay. This is a number 2 question. Okay. Use a public restroom or hold it.
Use a public restroom. I have no shame.
So real quick, back when I got COVID, 2 years ago, whatever it was, I lost all my sense of smell, all of it. So I could use like the nastiest like bathroom just anywhere and be like, I would clean the place a little bit. It didn't smell like anything. Anyway,
great.
Sorry, that's an awful thing to say. But would you rather go into the future or back in time?
Into the future.
Rolling Stones or Elvis?
Ooh. Rolling Stones.
Okay. What's your favorite childhood TV show?
I really loved Briscoe County Jr.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes,
it had,
I do.
What was that? Bruce Campbell played in it. It was a really weird show.
Yeah.
It was one of my
awesome.
faves.
That's a first. That's a first. Somebody once said A-Team. I was like, oh shit, I forgot about the A-Team. That was
or
awesome.
Kung Fu. I really love that.
Oh
so
man,
great.
yeah. David Carradine. That was
so good. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Hey, if you like the podcast, if you got something out of it, please like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. I have a webpage that I put no time into, so don't go to that. And Amber, I'm so glad we did this, man. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Great.